Hey, everybody. There's a lot of talk these days about the lack of all human drafting on MTG Arena, and especially the consequences to the authenticity and sanctity of the draft experience. Because it's one thing if the bots aren't the best at drafting and we feel like we're not getting the decks we should. That's one issue. But it's not even the biggest issue hurting Throne of Eldraine drafting right now. And I think the biggest issue with Throne of Eldraine drafting is that 7/8 of the cards drafted are not part of the play experience. So imagine a world in which everybody sat down at an individual pod against a bunch of noobs who didn't know that black was any good in this set. And everybody who was good got to sit down and draft under those conditions. And then they pick up their decks and they go play in a tournament. Well, it's going to be like Zendikar sealed. Suddenly everybody's going to be playing black and there's going to be no swamps left in the land box, right? And that's really what's been happening. I mean, did we play any non-black decks today? I mean, we played a black deck, and I feel like we played a black deck in basically every round. Maybe there was an exception. But bottom line, the people are ending up with skewed decks, and they're all taking those skewed decks and putting it into one play experience. And it's really dragging down what feels like ought to be a home run for Wizards of the Coast. This set is dripping with flavor. There's a lot of complexity in the limited experience that ought to make it just shine. I ought to be thinking about this as, is this better or worse than Dominaria? That's where I should be thinking, but instead I'm just kind of ranting about how frustrating it is that everybody's in black, and that even if they fix the bots, we'll figure out the new thing that's broken, and then everybody will be in that, and 7/8 of the cards that are drafted on Arena just don't see play. And that's just a huge problem to the quality of the draft experience. And so why isn't human drafting a higher priority for them? I had a little side conversation with Professor Knox on Twitter about this yesterday. I'm not going to take a private conversation fully public from his end, but let's just say that Knox is also frustrated. And his point was, and you can't tell me that like this is technically difficult. Like you have to have bots, no bot drafting before you even add the bots, right? So Professor Knox is noxious. We can, maybe somebody can link his stream or something, or we'll rate him if he's on. But the bottom line is that he's not only frustrated, but frustrated because like he doesn't feel like the Arena team has the excuse of it's too hard, right? It's not technically difficult, right? And that's true. But that's not Nightbot. That is not Professor's. That's not his stream. Yeah. Anyway, we'll find it. But so anyway, here's what I said to Knox in response to the fact that it is not that he thinks it's not a technically difficult thing to do. And so I said this. You're right that it is an issue of prioritization and will, not of technical possibility, but easy tech doesn't mean free feature either. Even small seeming features end up representing a large enough commitment of resources that they have to be planned for and argued for and scheduled. So introduce an all-human draft queue is one of many features on their menu, and they are putting their budget elsewhere. So the question is why? And there are probably a lot of factors, but I expect the primary ones are just projected impact to revenue and engagement from that feature over other features. Someone in charge doesn't think that all human drafting will have as positive an impact on those things as their other possible choices on the menu of features. There are probably people in the room who disagree and are saying so, but the buck stops somewhere, and wherever the buck stops, that person has decided that it doesn't add up to the top priority. I do wonder how much, if at all, the preservation of a key selling point for Magic Online is a factor. I hope it's zero, but it's possible that Wizards saw enough people move away from Magic Online towards Arena, and they're hedging against the abandonment of Magic Online before they are ready for it by having Magic Online be the only place for truly authentic digital drafting. That's a little bit tinfoil hat. I'm not saying that's a major factor. If it is a factor, I'm saying, though, that these decisions are made with a lot of factors in mind, and that could be one of them. And I don't know if it is. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying it's a possibility. But I am also saying that if all of us are right about how much worse it makes the experience, especially with Eldraine, then this will manifest itself in those all-important revenue and engagement numbers. So when players change their time and money votes away from a feature, the devs notice, and the powers that be, most importantly, notice. The decision makers, wherever the buck stops, that person is looking closely at these kind of numbers. So on a personal level, if you feel like, you know what, Eldraine is bringing me down a little bit on Arena right now on the draft front because it just doesn't feel good and authentic, go ahead and skip it a little bit. Go just grind your gold for a little bit and just stop entering those queues, and you will have your vote heard. We can make petitions. We can continue. I can continue to pound the pulpit here and hope that Wizards is listening. All that stuff has some kind of impact and is relevant and worthwhile. But the number one thing that moves decision makers who are making decisions like this one for Wizards is the impact on projected engagement and revenue. And if we throw up our hands and walk away from Eldraine a little bit more than we might have otherwise, that's the kind of message that gets through to powers that be in game-making organizations. So keep that in mind. It's definitely not the technical difficulty of it. It's that it's a real feature with real costs, and somebody at Wizards doesn't think the payoff for them is worth it right now. We can keep talking about it, and we can keep voting with our time and money, and hopefully they will change the prioritization of that feature. But in the meantime, those are the tools we have available, and those are the forces at work in this decision. So just wanted to express that, since I know this is something that's on a lot of people's minds.